Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tom Smalley, and welcome back to Lawyers Ethics in Action, where we use real-life examples of Australia's dodgiest lawyers to show you what not to do. Today's episode is on the importance of correctly dealing with clients' money. What do you do when a client transfers money to your firm in connection with the provision of legal services? Well, let's look at the situation of Albert Edris Trong of Erdenson Lawyers in Sydney to find out exactly what not to do. Mr. Trong, when practicing, received money from two clients for the purpose of completing a land purchase transaction. What Mr. Trong did next was in breach of not only one, but all five of the important principles we will learn about today, the 5 principles of trust accounting regulation. These principles are derived from the legal profession uniform law's complex provisions. The first is separation. Mr. Trong, upon receiving the client's money, failed to put it into his general trust account, instead placing it within his business expenses account. Second, Mr. Trong failed to designate his client's money as trust money, and instead he used it to settle debts of the firm. Third, Mr. Trong failed to demarcate the money within the account as money is to be used for a specific client in relation to a specific matter. Mr. Trong failed to keep any records of his trust account for a period of 3 whole years. And finally, Mr. Trong failed to engage any external auditors, and when Law Society auditors sought to examine his accounts, he failed to provide them with the correct information. You may ask, what are the consequences provided that Mr. Trong ultimately uses his own money to perform the transaction on the client's behalf? Well, under this obligation under the law, Mr. Trong was the subject of a regulatory investigation by the New South Wales Law Society that ultimately saw him removed from the role of practitioners. In addition to this, if Mr. Chong's clients had suffered any loss, he would have been in breach of an obligation to them and ultimately would have been subject to paying equitable compensation for any loss they suffered. And finally, and most importantly, Mr. Trong suffered massive reputational consequences, which saw his firm become insolvent within a mere number of years. This is why you must separate, designate, demarcate, record keep, and engage auditors, and not do what Mr. Trong did.